And yeah. Hello my friends, I'm here doing a quickie review of Resident Evil Village's Winter's Expansion DLC, primarily the Shadows of Rose campaign. I absolutely adore Village, like I just love it to pieces, so naturally I was very excited to jump back into the story. As far as spoilers go, obviously I'm gonna be avoiding like the big story stuff. I will be touching on the basic plot as outlined in the very beginning of the game. And as far as footage goes, I'll only be showing footage from like the more or less the first act of the game, and probably goes without saying that there are probably spoilers here for Village itself. That's it. Let's go! So the idea behind Shadows of Rose is that scientists still have a fragment of the Megamycete, which apparently houses a bunch of like memories and information and stuff, and Rose kinda psychically goes inside of it to try and find out how to get rid of her mysterious powers. And like obviously the ending of Resident Evil 8 left us with a lot of questions, so I mean it feels really good to just kinda jump right back into that exact part of the story and just kinda learn more about Rose and everything that's going on. And like the whole premise of like going into this collection of memories and information, it's perfect. It's perfect for like so many reasons. You know, from Capcom's perspective, like they were able to reuse huge swaths of Resident Evil 8. Like really big chunks of the game are reused here, which is obviously very economical, you know, it really cut down on like cost and dev time and stuff. But then from our perspective, revisiting these places is just fun. And we even get to see a few old characters as well, which is even more fun. It's just like a fun little, you know, it's a fun little encore for Village. And as you've probably seen from the trailers, the Duke is here for some reason, and so it's just like, okay, yeah, I'll take more Duke. Why not? I love the Duke. He's great. So yeah, like revisiting all of this Village stuff is fun, but then like the fact that this is a weird mental landscape and reality is all weird and stuff, you know, like that opens up the door for all sorts of cool like reality bending scenarios. And because reality is so messed up and you really don't know what's going on, it really gives this like feeling of unease that just kind of like, it runs through the whole experience. Like you never really feel safe, even when you should feel safe. Like you really never know what's gonna happen at any given time. And then of course you also get all sorts of just like cool, creepy, surreal visual sequences, you know. I mean, I always love that kind of thing in games. Whenever it gets all trippy and mind-bending and stuff, it's just loads of fun. And I like this because like, you know, we get to explore Rose as a character and a lot of her own thoughts and emotions. And it's neat because they easily could have just relied on flashbacks to just kind of like tell us her story. But instead, we're usually learning very naturally through like the ongoing plot and the cool psyche exploring stuff. We get to more naturally learn like who Rose is and what happened to her while she was growing up, what her life has been like. And then for most of the game, she's aided by this weird, mysterious entity that just kind of like writes on the walls. And so she's like got somebody to talk to, somebody to kind of guide her along, which is cool. And I'm not gonna lie, there's some touching stuff in this game. I do not find myself feeling emotionally touched by games very often, like the sentimental stuff. But this one did it for me, at least at a good few places. More than once, it brought a little tiny glistening tear to this monster's eye, and that is rare. And even more than just Rose's personal story, like as far as connecting to the greater Resident Evil plot goes, this campaign does not disappoint. The series in general is so good at just like plopping the player down into just weird, mysterious situations. You have no idea what's going on, and then like slowly feeding the bits of info, and then wrapping everything up into a cohesive and mostly understandable plot by the end with, you know, answers to most of the major questions. And that's exactly what we've got here. The plot is just highly enjoyable all the way through and just feels nice and wrapped up by the end. So let's get to the gameplay. You know, obviously Shadows of Rose is very similar to the base game, but there are some changes. A lot of it is kind of stripped down. You know, it's a little bit simpler. You only get your hands on just a couple of weapons, and there really isn't any inventory management. It's just kind of not a thing, but that's nice. You know, options are great, lots of different weapons and things like that. You know, that's fine, but there's always something very refreshing about just a shorter, more simple campaign without as many bells and whistles, you know. Crafting is still present, and that's one thing you'll actually do a pretty fair amount. The biggest change to the gameplay is your powers, your mysterious Rose Winter's powers. She's got some kind of weird psychic thing going on, which is very fun and mysterious. You just really don't even know exactly what the powers are, but you just kind of work it out. And see, the world is often covered in this like goop stuff. They love their goop stuff. Resident Evil, they love goop stuff. It's great. And you use your powers to kill these flower things, and that like will clear away patches of the goop stuff. You know, sometimes it's like they're holding items or they're blocking your path, that kind of thing. It's a really simple mechanic, but like, I don't know, it ties really well with the, you know, just like the slower, more exploration-heavy Resident Evil gameplay. Having to like look at the obstacle and follow the little like the line to see like where the flower thing is, and you gotta like find a way to get to it and, you know, try to hit it from the right angle. I don't know, it's a nice little thing. And then it also leads to some very tense sequences when you gotta clear out the goop and find the flower while you're being pursued by enemies. And as far as combat goes, your powers can affect enemies somewhat. There's no block mechanic at all, which like right at the beginning, it starts out a little bit frustrating. You feel a little bit too helpless, but then you kind of slowly open up these new ways to defend yourself. And this leads to a really, really nice balance of tension and player agency. You know, like, I never felt entirely in control of things, but I never really felt like completely helpless either. And of course, it's a Resident Evil game, so like enemy placement is just it's so meticulous and so perfect. You're given all of these opportunities to either like, you know, kill them or run away, and it's, I don't know, just that balance of tension and constantly feel like I'm just on the edge of my seat, I'm on my toes, just trying to get away, just barely taking them down, just barely using my powers to get away. Like it always feels great, you know. I'm never completely helpless. I'm never completely overwhelmed and not knowing what to do. But I'm never steamrolling them either. It felt like pretty much perfect for the entire experience, and that is rare. That is some impeccable game design right there. As far as the enemies go, enemy types, you know, they're pretty basic. You know, your main enemy is very, very similar to stuff that we've had in a lot of Resident Evil games. Kind of, you know, just a guy who just kind of comes at you or whatever. But as always, when it comes to how they look, how they act, their movement patterns, how they sound, somehow they're always fresh and scary. These ones are just fresh and scary as ever. And you want to talk about scary. If you felt that Village was lacking in the scare department, I know, you know, there's the famous part that's scary, but you know, some people would argue it still doesn't have a lot of scares. Well, let me tell you, Shadows of Rose very much makes up for it. Like, absolutely. Like, a huge amount of the runtime it's incredibly dark and tense with surprises aplenty. Like, Resident Evil's always good at building tension, but like, there's a part of me that thinks that we might have just the most amazingly tense scenarios in this game than maybe any other Resident Evil. Like, no joke. It's gonna take a few years of like playing through all of them again and again, but like, at least right now, like, that tension is insane. It is crazy. And just like Village, there was one sequence in particular that had me honestly just about tinkling in my pantaloons. I'm not gonna lie. It was, you know, just like yelping and like holding my hand over my mouth to try not to wake up my housemates. It was good. Some really, really scary stuff. Like, it's a short game. It's a very short experience, but like the ratio of scares is incredibly high. And then of course, all the scariness and everything is helped by the visuals. What can I say about the visuals? It's Resident Evil. It looks immaculate. It looks perfect. It looks beautiful. The environments are gorgeous, so wonderfully detailed. Lighting is incredible. Yeah, that's that. You know what it is. You know what you're getting. It's a Resident Evil game. And then even on top of all the environments and stuff, you know, like the effects, like the writing effect with your little helper person, like writing on the wall. You see that kind of a lot, this like big golden glowy thing. It's just a really nice effect, and it's a really nice thing to be able to see. It always looks really nice. Overall, Shadows of Rose is, I mean, it's everything I could have wanted. Like, you know, it's one of those, like, how often does that happen where you're just like, oh, I can't wait for this game, looks really good, I want this from it, and you get it, and you're like, yep, it's just as good as I wanted it to be, it ticked every box I wanted it to tick. It's just as much enjoyable as I could possibly want. It's obviously a smaller experience than like a full game, but it's still decently meaty, you know, akin to a hearty snack. Took me about 4 hours to beat the first time, but that's my very slow, meticulous first run. Could be 2 hours or something if you like really know what you're doing. But yeah, like it's, I don't know, it's everything I could have wanted. You know, good length, you know, complexity kind of scaled back accordingly to the length, so it's not as much of an investment. It's just kind of like a fun, breezy kind of thing. Lots of fun Resident Evil story stuff, including stuff I was left wishing for at the end of Village, so awesome. A solid new character to just learn about and grow with, some unique mechanics to play with, a chance to revisit Village locales and characters, a phenomenal presentation, loads of scares. Just perfect, just great. I got no complaints here. If I absolutely gotta complain, I'll say that some of like the little like reminder pop-ups are a little aggressive. Like they come up a little too often when you really don't need them to, and so, like, you know, it's a little bit less scary when you're in a scary situation in a weird brain bug fungus world, and a thing comes up that's like, explore your surroundings. Yeah, I'm gonna explore my surroundings. You don't need to tell me, you don't need to give me an updated mission. This is not a mission. And that's, you know, a very minor annoyance. And then, I mean, one thing, not even really against it, but like, I could see it not being necessarily as good for replayability. There are a good few sequences that are very like stealth heavy, especially like the latter half of the experience. A lot of, I don't know, not gimmicky, but very railroaded kind of story sequences and stealth and all that. And, you know, it might not be as fun to just kind of like jump in and breeze through. But of course, that leads to more tension and more just story stuff and scares. So it's, you know, it's a trade-off. But that's it. You know, Resident Evil team, they're killing it, as always. I highly, highly enjoyed everything they've been putting out recently. And so, does not disappoint. I love it. Before we wrap up, you know, might as well talk about the other parts of the Winters expansion. I played around with the third-person mode in the base game a little bit. It's not really for me. Like, I really like third-person modern Resident Evil gameplay. So I don't know if it's just because I came into these games with the games were made with first-person in mind, and that's just what I did first. You know, it's like I'm not ready to leave third-person behind completely. You know, I do hope for more third-person experiences, but I don't know, something about this. I just like, maybe it's a little bit awkward kind of like switching between third and first person whenever you enter or exit a cutscene. And then like whenever I pull out to third person, it's so much less immersive that I just kind of like, I'd rather just stay in first person. It's just so seamless and yeah, immersive that I very much prefer it. It's great that it's an option though. You know, I'm sure there are people out there for whom the whole first person thing was kind of a deal breaker, probably pretty heartbreaking for them. So it's great that they have the third person option now. It's cool, it works fine. And then the extra mercenary stuff, I didn't really touch. I'm not into mercenaries, so I'm sorry. I have no opinions there. So there you have it. That's the Winters expansion. That's Shadows of Rose. We're done. We talked about it. I loved it. Let me know if you loved it down in the comments. Goodbye.